What did you make of how this whole thing unfolded?
Yeah, listen, if you look at it and you take all the emotion out of the decision, you can see why the FAI have acted the way they have. I think Mick would have been extremely disappointed for sure in terms of what happened, but knowing Mick and the way he is, he would have been disappointed, to say the least. I think he would have been keen to finish the job, but from a business point of view, which the new guys in charge have acted probably very decisive in their decisions and probably have made the right decision for the good of football in Ireland as well, and the good for Stephen Kenny for sure.
Let's talk about Mick. Let's talk about Mick first, because obviously this is his second stint in charge, and it hasn't ended the way he would have wanted it. Obviously if he qualified for the tournament and was handing over the reins to a team that was already qualified, like Herida did in Denmark, for example, then that would have been the perfect send-off for him. The campaign was a bit meh in the end. Like 3 wins, 2 against Gibraltar, 1 against Georgia. Not a very difficult group when you look back on it. The Danes didn't play up to their own standards. So what is his legacy from this campaign going to be, Stephen? How do we sum it up? Like, was it a success or was it kind of in the middle?
I think Mick goes back a long way with Ireland. When I joined Wolves, whatever it was now, it could be 10, 11 years ago, I quickly found out Mick wants to be manager again from there. So it wasn't just this campaign for Mick. It was about getting back into that job that he obviously had some fond memories of and obviously some scar tissue. So for Mick, getting back into the job wasn't just about coming back and doing really well in a whole. It was about a lot more, to be honest with you. And when you look at the campaign as a whole, I think it was stop-start. But when Mick took over, there was a connection lost with the manager and the media. So the atmosphere within the group could never come across to the fans. I think Mick has brought a connection back with the fans where it was needed. And then he got the game rolling, got the ball rolling, was going into the playoffs on the back of a good performance and with confidence. But at the same time, I've been disappointed not to qualify for sure. But I think overall, Mick will leave this job and look at it as a success. The fans have reunited with the whole buy into the fact that they needed to be connected again, for sure. But now you're looking at it going into the playoffs. If we had Mick in charge, if he won, he'd have been in a right good place. But now obviously he's not, and Stephen takes over with a difficult start, in my opinion. But it's going to be interesting with the 2 new guys as the backroom staff as well. Having known them, it's going to be exciting. Hello?
Yeah, you're still there. Sorry, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Go on.
Stephen, just on that, the excitement that comes from the backroom team, what is it in particular about them? What do you think the 2 lads will actually bring as a backup to Stephen Kenny in terms of Keith Andrews and in terms of Damien Duff? Because I think because of the roles that they've held so far, our knowledge on the 2 lads as coaches so far in their career almost comes from what we hear said about the lads and almost the hearsay about the lads. From knowing them, what is their philosophy? How does it fall in line with what Stephen Kenny will bring?
I suppose I was nearly about to retire and I trained with MK Dons and I seen Keith Andrews as a coach. He's very efficient, very well able to dominate the players and get what he wanted from them in terms of a nice, strong view. Duffers has obviously turned into a bit of a fanatic. I've done my UEFA B course with him. You could tell he's a deep thinker and wants to do things 100%. So you hear things coming out of Shamrock Rovers when he was there with the young boys. No matter what level you train, you have to train with enthusiasm for the players, and he certainly did that. So the enthusiasm them 2 boys have. But if you look at the whole setup and take a back seat and look at it and you go, right, Damien Duff, really good character, really good person, really reliable. Keith Andrews, really good person, really strong-minded, as you can tell from his views on Sky, and a really good coach. And then, first and foremost, both of them are really good human beings. So not only has he got strong characters, he's got good people as well. I think that goes down to Jim Crawford and then John O'Shea as well within the camp, that they are all on the journey of being coaches and managers, and all real strong characters. But again, I go back to it, really good people and really good to be around. So if I was the players, I'd be excited by the guys coming in with Stephen as well, for sure.
Can I ask you about John O'Shea, actually? Because I hadn't heard the notion of him being floated as somebody who is in the extended backroom team, or getting involved with the under-21s. But it's a brilliant decision. And like I was saying, that kind of John O'Shea had an absolutely remarkable career, and as you say, seems like a really good person. So, I wasn't sure that he was going to get involved in management, because he was so successful that he could easily have just put his feet up and retired and done whatever he wanted to do with his life. But he's made the decision to get involved and to roll his sleeves up and to go in at a club level where it's not an easy job. It's like every day you're trying to make a group of players better to sustain themselves in a division or to try and achieve something. So what's he going to bring to the under-21 setup, and what kind of future do you envisage for him in his career? Is he management material ultimately? Is that where this is going for him?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt John O'Shea will be manager one day. He's just started his journey now. He started coaching this year at Reading, so he's had 5-6 months at Reading. He's a little bit behind the two guys in terms of coach for a while, and is still on the learning train. He's literally, I've known John since he's 12. He doesn't take anything for a chance. He does his homework, he does his work, he studies hard. I say study. I mean, football is sometimes about learning the ropes, seeing what mistakes people make, what they gain from their experience, and they do good. And I'm sure John will go into the 21 setup wanting to do well with the teams, wanting to win first and foremost, and then it helps everyone both ways. John's getting a look at young players to see what's up and coming, like Andrews has done with the 21s now, and got a feel for their characters, got a feel for how they play. Would have been looking to take the next step into first team coaching anyway, if it wasn't with Ireland, I'm sure. And Keith has obviously gone in with Stephen. Stephen liked him. So going back to John, he's PR perfect to be a manager. He relates to the fans. He gets them. He gets what they're feeling, and obviously he's a deep thinker of the game. So one day he will be manager for sure. It could possibly be the senior international team. I'm not too sure what they're thinking, but one day he'll look to manage Ireland, whether it's 10 years time, 20 years time. But he'll definitely go on and be a manager somewhere.
So we've got John O'Shea, we've got Damien Duff, we've got Keith Andrews, a couple of experienced former Irish internationals there, to say the very least. Then you've got Robbie Keane, Stephen. Where does Robbie Keane end up in all of this? If you're running the FAI, is there a role that you create for him? Is it simply paying off his contract and going forward with the management teams that Stephen Kennedy and Jim Crawford wants?
Whatever was signed for.
Just having a bit of trouble with your line there, Stephen. So we might see if we can give Stephen a quick call back on that. But good question, Owen. Good question. Where does Robbie Keane fit into all this?
It's there is obviously a wealth of experience already there, and I think it has been one of the criticisms, hasn't it, of the FAI, at least in previous years, that there isn't enough of past experience being called upon, that there isn't enough of, because as you say, you talk about the Jack Charlton era, great European Cup winners, etc., but the Mick McCarthy era was similar, not obviously quite at that level, but just one rung below it in terms of the quality we've had around. And obviously we've had Roy Keane brought into the setup before. That didn't quite work out. I think perhaps on the management level that isn't going to work out for him generally. Stephen, I know you're back with us, and I was just making that point there that the FAI have clearly moved to perhaps address in recent years the fact that former Irish internationals and successful club players, for example, and successful Irish internationals perhaps weren't being given a fair crack at the whip when it came to gigs in the FAI. Robbie Keane obviously had been given his gig a couple of years ago, is still on a contract. What do you now do with Robbie Keane and that contract?
Yeah, well, as I said before I got cut off, I think Robbie would have had a conversation with the FAI when he took over on what role he would have been. I'm not 100% sure Stephen Kenny would have known about it. So until they come upon that he'd signed a 4-year deal, listen, Robbie can certainly be an ambassador for the FAI going forward. Does he want to be involved in the coaching? Only Robbie knows that. He's got a job in Middlesbrough that is obviously got off to a dodgy start, to say the least, and they've had to pick themselves up and deal with an awful lot there. But again, he'll be learning from that, I suppose, and he'll want to learn from the not winning games is tough when you start off as a coach and a manager. So, and especially a young manager in Woodgate. So I'm sure they're both learning as they go along. He's picked Robbie because he believes in Robbie as a coach and as a person, and he'll look to develop as a coach, I'd imagine, somewhere, but obviously not with the Irish setup in the senior setup, and maybe Robbie doesn't want to go down younger either. I'm not too sure. Robbie's the best person to ask on that for sure. I don't think it's an ideal situation, if I'm honest with you, but it's happened. It happened 2 years ago, and the guys that have taken over the reign have had to deal with it. So, and as you said, as I said, they've dealt with it decisive in every decision so far. So you go with that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's interesting that you refer to him as a developing coach there, and that's obviously what he is at the moment. We almost need to be careful of developing coaches, I'd imagine, in Ireland. The FAI don't want to burn this bridge with Robbie Keane. Like, what if he goes and develops and turns out he's a fantastic coach? Like, this is a situation that obviously Stephen Kenny has his team, and that's perfect, and that's the way it should be for the senior international manager. But then there is an employee here who is a legend of the Irish game, who we surely don't want to annoy too much.
No, well, I think Robbie is bright enough to realise that sometimes football is a business and decisions are made. Stephen Kenny had a decision to make. He wanted to have on his coaching staff, and he needed to be right for him. He hasn't got that long of a contract to be able to carry a coach if he doesn't want to coach. So Stephen has made that decision in terms of he's going to have Damien and Keith with him. I think that's got to be respected as well. It's a big decision. It's a strong decision, and Stephen wants to do it his way, which is fair enough, especially when you don't get that many opportunities to manage a country.
You talked about Damien Duff and him going and working with the younger players at Shamrock Rovers, and that was a springboard for him to get to Celtic. And obviously, you know, he clearly wants to go down that path. And you look at what Keith Andrews did. He worked with the younger players at Ireland and kind of came up through the age grade there, so that when he got to the under-21s, he actually knew those players for a number of years and could have conversations with them. If you were advising Robbie Keane at this stage about, you know, plotting a course to get to a point where you have the experience of international football. Now, obviously, he's been with Mick for that period of time that he's been with Mick in the backroom team there. But would it be a good idea if you were advising him? Would you give him the advice to go and work with one of the other younger underage teams, so that you know exactly what the talent pool is coming through?
No, every person is different. If I had to go into management as in coaching, I wouldn't want to have coached young players. That would have been as in like 15, 16-year-olds. I think Damien did it at Rovers, but Keith Andrews did a year with MK Don's first team in the championship before he started doing his Sky. So he was always looking to get into it, even when he was doing his media work. I think Robbie will know which way he wants to go and how he wants to do it. And you learn from your mistakes sometimes as you go along, for sure. Nobody can see how to be a manager, how to be a coach. You go along with it, you do as best you can, prepare as best you can to be that, and then after that you rely on a little bit of luck and go from there. But Robbie will know what he wants to do. He's already coaching at a championship team, which, trust me, if you're on the coach's ladder and you get a job like that, you are delighted. So to get it. So he's up and running as a coach. His Ireland setup was definitely a bonus for allowing himself to gain more experience under Mick and TC. But I've known Mick and TC a long time, and they both come together. And TC is Mick's coach, and it'd be very difficult to see anybody else having a big impact. So Robbie would have learned a lot, even from the 18 months he's had with Ireland, for sure.
Stephen, just on a final note, I think we just need to kind of appreciate that this is very much a new era for Irish football. I don't think anything kind of feels like a new era given everything that's happening in the world at the moment. But like, does that bring excitement for you? Are you hopeful for the future?
Yes, I've seen a lot of underage football the last couple of years myself, probably more than the three coaches put together that are there at the moment in terms of watching games. So I've seen a lot of the players' talents. I've seen young players develop from under 18s to under 21s and go on and not be frightened. And I can see another one or two players developing to get into Stephen Kenny's team. It just won't be a case of Stephen's going to roll out all of these 21s into the senior setup. That's just not going to happen. And you have to be playing English football at a decent level to allow yourself to be in with a chance of playing for Ireland. He might have one or two that could come in and play that are not involved. An example, if Troy Parrott is not playing regularly, he could have them in the squad. But there won't be a case of there be 5, 6, 7 players just roll up and get into the team. That won't happen. And even though they'll all be excited by Stephen Kenny getting the job because they'll have all have had good experiences with him and going for that. Just touching on Stephen, what I did see with Stephen was from Dundalk, he had a pattern of play to 21s for Ireland, and you could see similarities with extra different bits and pieces. To enable yourself to do that, you have to be a good coach, because every manager wants a style of play that they are renowned for. And with Stephen, I've seen definitely glimpses, if not 50-60% of the way Dundalk played, Ireland the 21s played, with extra bits then to adjust to the teams you're playing against. And again, that'll have to be a case when you go up the ladder to international football. You will be able to bring your own pattern, but you'll have to adjust to better teams closing down, better teams streetwise to the whole situation. So Stephen's got his hands full, but it's definitely an exciting time with young players coming through and a new manager at the head.
You can see why the benefits of actually having worked with the under-21s, because everybody's like, oh, this isn't going to be like club football. He's not going to have loads of time with the players. He's not going to be able to get them to play like Dundalk were playing. But Stephen Kenny now has the experience of making the under-21s try and play a style of play with only a limited amount of coaching sessions with them, which I think is actually, in the long run, we're going to look back at this and go, well, that was the right way to see if you could get a manager into the international setup from the way that Stephen Kenny's career was going, and maybe Jim Crawford is our next manager in waiting. We're getting ahead of ourselves there, but like there's a style and a system of bringing players through, and that makes a lot of sense. Just you talked about watching so much underage football. Can you name us some names about players that you are excited, who are bubbling up, who might be a part of the first 18 months of Stephen Kenny's career as manager? Everybody's talking about Malumbi. Could he go straight in the team?
I think with Jason, he's you can tell by his style of play. I don't like individuals calling out names. So I think if a career has a pathway, and sometimes you get injured, sometimes you have to pick yourself up from that. But with Jason, he's played championship football this year, and literally, I know he's from my neck of the woods, but he's literally a right keen double in terms of he doesn't really give a sugar who you are, what you do. He's just there to play, and after that, I'm sure Jason is respectful and a professional. But when he goes on that pitch, I don't think, let's just say, the best centre midfielder comes to play. I don't think Jason will be intimidated by him. I think he's going to play his game and run all over him to a certain degree, because that's what he is. He's an athlete. He's a closer down, and he can get on the ball and he can play. So Malumbi has definitely got a bright future. But again, he might go back to Brighton, might not play, get in the regularity of playing men's football, which he has done this year, and take a backward step. So a lot of players will have a transition this year, I think, of Premier League football championship to maybe a week or two off to back into it straight away again. So you're not going to get much time to turn around the season in terms of mentality. Hopefully players will go in with a good rhythm and ready to go again straight away.
All right. Well, look, Stephen, we'll leave it there. You're very good with your time this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
All the best. Stay safe.
It's Stephen Hunt giving us some immediate reaction. It's obviously not immediate. It happened on Saturday, but giving us some reaction this morning to the end of the Mick McCarthy era.